Good morning, good afternoon, good night, everyone in the Turbo Toad community. It's your boy Freeman, Finance and Crypto. Guys, we've got a special guest today, Open Campus. We have Will from their platform going to be speaking with us. I'm really looking forward to talking to him about Open Campus. As always, guys, I'm just an independent person who is a part of the Turbo community, just like every single one of you. I'm just an extension of the community. When you go to Turbo's actual website, it says nobody owns Turbo. Intellectual property is open to everyone. So we should all feel empowered to try to spread the awareness of Turbo as much as possible, guys. But as you know, none of this is ever financial advice. I'm just got slightly a degen unless Turbo and finance. But let's get into it. We have Open Campus. Open Campus is a community-led DAO bringing education on chain with over 280,000 followers on X. They are also in collaboration with Animoca Brands. That might sound familiar because Turbo is also partnered with Animoca Brands. But let's get into it. Will, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Yo, 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 good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Thanks so much for having us here.
Of course, of course. I'm really looking forward to it. We do a lot of different things with these Turbo AMAs. Sometimes we bring on people that we Turbo's partnered with. Sometimes we just bring on other community members. But I really like this branch and going into trying to educate the population, educate the Turbo community. And then what better person to bring on than you representing Open Campus? So can you elaborate a little bit? I know I said Open Campus is a community-led DAO trying to bring education on chain. That's obviously a large use case. But can you explain to us a little bit, Will, about what that is exactly doing and how y'all are going about that?
Yeah, so maybe I can, take a step back 18, 24 months ago. So the open campus ecosystem was really born out of the brainchild behind Yatsui, the chairman at Animoca Brands. And they eventually, partnered with Binance Launchpad to launch the EDU token. So it's a live traded token, but what that eventually powers is what we do now at Open Campus. So at OC, we're a Web3 foundation, and the goal is to really build infrastructure, resources, community around the education side. And I think if you fast forward 18 months now, we have so many different products and platforms that we can tap into, whether it's Web2 learners, Web3 financing, degenerative, plays with NFTs and meme coins. But at the end of the day, we're all here to learn together and hopefully provide some value to the ecosystem as well.
Awesome. So this isn't something that Open Campus was developed and then Animoca came in. This is something that Animoca worked with Binance Launchpad. Am I understanding that right? To get Open Campus off the ground and get it started 2 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, at Open Campus, Animoca is one of the key launch partners, but we also have, other partners in the education space, some more traditional education, some more Web2 ed tech. But Animoca, they're obviously, a big part of our growth to date. And, as we kind of expand our ecosystem to folks like Turbo, and other DAOs and communities, again, it takes a village to really make a project successful. So yeah, so excited to be here now and obviously sharing the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I'm sure it is a lot of work, especially in what is at least a new niche to me, a new sector in this education realm. So, do you mind? Can you dive into that a little more? You mentioned like education within DAOs, education within NFTs, but what exactly does that look like? Could you give me like a specific example of a use case um, for Open Campus with one of those examples right there? Like, let's just say NFTs. How does the education realm of that really come about and be beneficial to somebody?
Yeah, I think this plays, like you said, quite unique, when it comes to the actual, crypto and Web3 sector, right? Because if you kind of look at what's hot and really leading the market, it's gaming, it's AI, it's meme coins now. And historically education outside of crypto has been one of the slowest moving industries, period. So when we kind of looked at the landscape, I was really trying to look at a few things. One is, what are existing problems that we can be solving in the world, in Web 2 or traditional education, and how do we actually tackle that first? And so we've actually launched a few product lines. One is our accelerator. So we've invested in over 60 future of work and education companies globally that have impacted over 22 million learners. So think of K-12 all the way to workforce upskilling. And the goal for that play is to actually figure out, how do we onboard those 22 million learners into the Web3 blockchain ecosystem. Now, what does that look for the Web3 side? It's our philosophy that we can really try to bridge Web2 with Web3 through alternative financing. So one particular play that we're very excited about is, how do we use, our EDU token to finance student scholarships, student impact experiences, but at the end of the day, actually figure out what is that bridge between blockchain and education. I think if we kind of fast forward to, our focus for Q4, one area that we're so excited about is EDU chain. So, we realized that there's so many student process flows and challenges that we can support. And, that's actually where we can take a crack at, really building the infrastructure that supports, a big problem in the world.
That's awesome. I can really see this being it's not even really a niche, right? Education is huge, but like you said, it's one of those sectors that, has doesn't change much, right? A lot of it's government based, and anything government based, like at least through like grade school education, it doesn't really change. You know how long it takes to build like a bridge by your house, like 10 years. Anything government really moves slow. But just looking at this like objectively, I think it's really interesting bringing education on chain. Like, think about it. What if even like textbooks were a form of like NFT or something on chain? Because you've heard throughout history, right? And the older I get, the more I get in history about potential, a dictator gets into position or something and rewrites the history books, right? Well, once something like that was on chain, there wouldn't be any rewriting it. Now, sure, you could come up with another version of it, right? But you would always be able to find that original version. So I think it's a very interesting concept. And if y'all have somebody like Animoca as one of the many launch partners behind you, then obviously, there's a lot of people that feel the same way. You had mentioned how big meme coins were getting. And I was listening to a speech that somebody gave at Token 2049 talking about the culture of cult like following meme coins. And I know cult sounds kind of bad, but at the end of the day, you know, the turbo community is extremely vibrant. That's when I started making content. I made a turbo video and they just gravitated towards me. And so I could really see, you know, I could really see Open Campus partnering with, somebody like Turbo, really bringing a lot of energy and community to it. Every time I talk to somebody about Turbo, like either ladies are like, "Oh my gosh, he's so cute," or my kids are like, "Hey, that's a really cool frog, Dad." So how do you see something like Turbo potentially getting involved with educational opportunities within education in general with Web3, or more specifically Open Campus?
Oh, great question. I think, this is really part of the maturation of the industry, right? The fact that we have, folks that are dialing in today really trying to understand the next phase of Turbo and, how we collectively fit within the meme coin economy. That says a lot about the industry moving forward together. When I kind of look at, the more degenerative side, whether it's meme coins or utility platforms like your pump funds or NFTs, I do think that there's a staging process for, an initial project getting upstarted, but then really starting to think about building, long-term views, long-term infrastructure. And so at Open Campus, we're definitely, very focused in supporting frontier projects like yourselves. We work very closely with more mature DAOs like your ApeCoins, your Arbitrums, your Mochaverses of the world, but we're starting to actively look at communities and projects that are at that spotlight of the space. So, in the case of looking at meme coins, one thing that I'm very excited about is the future of community, right? And I think what that allows us to do, as an education partner, is really build the right type of infrastructure, the community infrastructure behind tokens like yourselves. And I think the back channels is that as a treasury, as a fund, we're always very interested in investing and financing the right type of team. So I think there's a few things that we can cascade and talk about. One is, how do we actually build the right type of learning and community onboarding infrastructure, and then later down the end, how do you actually have more institutional capital coming into play?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for explaining that, Will. So I know you mentioned y'all are partnered with bigger players, right now, which Turbo I really feel is on its way to being one of the top meme coins. We see it with the daily volume, we see it with all the listings. We landed a Binance listing lately. I know I was so excited about it. I woke up, my DMs were flooded with people saying Turbo got a Binance listing. All this big news happens when I'm sleeping, by the way. I don't know how that happens. All the big news happens when I'm sleeping. I don't know. Maybe I need to go nocturnal. But can you give an example of, you know, right now you said y'all are partnered with, I believe, Arbitrum, that y'all have done something in the educational realm. What does that specific partnership look like? You don't have to go into details that you can't share, but just from like a bird's eye view, what does that kind of partnership look like so people in the Turbo community could know potentially what a Turbo open campus partnership could potentially look like in the future?
Oh, great question. So, maybe a bit of history about myself. So I, outside of being on the leadership team for Open Campus, I also run a university called New Campus. Similar name, but in a very different business. And for the past 10 years, we've been serving some of the most exciting, fastest growing tech companies in Southeast Asia. We work with over 500 of them. And so, as I kind of look at that landscape where teams and companies have accelerated and grown from 50 to 500 to 5,000 people, there's definitely a lot of org change and people that need to be developed and leadership that need to be put into place. And so when we kind of look at the DAO and Web3 ecosystem, it's actually a very similar pain point, right? And so I'd imagine that teams, whether it's mature coins like your Popcats, like your Pepe's of the world, it is about the team going through a sense of maturation. So one area that we're very interested in is actually supporting leadership and community development. So at Arbitrum, at ApeCoin, at Sandbox, for example, we actually do a lot of education for their community, whether it's upskilling them on really building the right type of team structure, all the way to setting up more mature onboarding processes for future participants and investors to come in. I think what I'm definitely very interested in, especially with the Turbo community, is how do we integrate a lot of our future resources from EDU chain, whether it's the capital, whether it's the technology, whether it's the tooling. But at the end of the day, it comes back to learning and onboarding. The world of crypto is, we're still in our own little bubble. How do we further educate to allow other folks to come in and really understand the great work that we're doing together?
I think it's a great initiative y'all are doing, Will. I was making a video last night, and I was telling us folks that are in crypto, right, Will, and we've been in crypto for a while now. We feel like everyone's crypto bros, right? We feel like everyone's into this, but when you look at the total crypto market cap being $2.3 trillion, that is very small in the grand scheme of things. There was a bad day in the stock market about a month ago that wiped out almost, what would have been the equivalent to over half of the crypto market cap in just a day, right? And so when we look at this from a total liquidity within crypto and even total participants, even though it is growing, there is still a lot of education to be done, a lot of education to be done on what is crypto, what is the benefits of blockchain technology, and also something security within Web3. There's a lot of hacks, a lot of scams. I was a victim of one recently, and I'll announce guys a AMA with the security folks later because I'm trying to educate people as well on how to stay safe within Web3 because I feel like that aspect of it is what kind of gives Web3 a bad name. But when I look at education going forward, whether it's I have little cousins that are in school and there's already artificial intelligence tools being used. In real life at my job, there's artificial intelligence being used. And Turbo being the first meme coin created by ChatGPT 4 using artificial intelligence. And you at Open Campus within the education realm, I think we're going to see a lot more artificial intelligence over the years coming into not just crypto, but education by far. So, how do you see artificial intelligence being used for education to improve personalized learning?
Oh, we're already seeing that, way across the border. And, I remember when Turbo first launched in the last cycle, you guys really set the precedent at being at that intersection. I mentioned, to you guys over TG earlier is that we actually already have, our stakes in the ground for AI, whether it's, our portfolio companies. So a lot of our education companies in Web2 and Web3 are already adopting AI tools, AI infrastructure, building their own, prompt engineering. So it streamlines the learner process. But recently, we also launched our own AI X education fund. So we did this with the players at Kit Protocol. It's a 10 million fund that is investing actively in Web3 and AI projects. And, I was saying that I think this would be very sweet to really try to figure out how do we move forward together? Because at the end of the day, I think AI is moving so fast. You need the right type of minds, the right type of experimenters to make it successful. And so, to your question around, how does AI in education fit? It's already here. It's already been evolving over the past 20, 30 years, but just accelerated in the past 12, 18 months because of adoption, because of ChatGPT, because of all these competitors coming through. So I'm definitely very bullish on that narrative, and I do think again, when it comes to storytelling and onboarding the masses, you need to find, or we need to find, those opportunities, whether it's education, AI, where the world really understands, and use that as Trojan horse to bring them in.
I apologize, I was on mute. That's awesome, Will. I think artificial intelligence is a wonderful tool. I probably would have done better in high school many years ago had I had it. But with anything good in life, there's always going to be someone trying to take advantage of it to do bad, or just even if it's not a person trying to do bad with it, it could be used for a way that it wasn't necessarily intended to. So, with the growth of artificial intelligence, like you said, this has been in the works for a while, but it's here now. And I don't believe enough people are educated on its abilities, educated on some of the potential dangers of what it could be because technology grows so fast, harder for 99% of the world's population to keep up with. So, Will, what are some of the potential dangers or negative sides of artificial intelligence?
I mean, this is hard for me to answer because I'm so pro innovation. And maybe I can, answer your question with an analogy, especially around like blockchain technology, right? Because, similarly with, crypto and how it's just revolutionized financing, it's definitely opened up a lot of backdoors to hacks and phishing. And I just read earlier today, our our beloved artist DK. I think he's been in the crypto space for almost 3 4 years now, and he recently clicked the phishing link, and all of his profits were removed, which is why. As a believer in this space, we definitely need to invest into the right infrastructure One of our portfolio companies are the great team at Boring Security. So they run workshops every week on best practices to stay safer. So, for those that haven't checked out, head over to their Discord. They're great. I think in the case of AI, we kind of look at a few different, spectrums, all the way from traditional education, governments, universities, corporate, to frontier learners, like, what we do now at ChatGPT. And so, one of the biggest challenges that I see are the laggard education infrastructure. So you still go to high school to universities, and they just have not kept up. They haven't kept up with assessments. They haven't kept up with curriculum. We're learning now more about the future of X than you are, going back to university or going to high school. So I do think, we're playing hopefully a big part in terms of enabling these challenger brands, challenger schools, challenger players like Turbo to really educate the market because even though we might not see it right now that we are revolutionizing and changing the industry, we are at their forefront. So short long answer to your short questions, I do think there are parts of the education industry that haven't kept up and likely will just phase out. But I do think as you know, folks at the forefront of this space, we should be very excited and proud about leading the front wave. And I do think at Turbo, that's exactly what we're doing.
I agree. I will message you outside of this, try to get the contact information of that company or that platform that you were just saying that does the weekly learnings and everything. I'd like to talk to them about security and Web3 and see about potentially having them, come talk to the Turbo community and things like that. Because yeah, same happened to me. It was a very sophisticated phishing link, a Zoom link actually that infiltrated my ex account and yeah, it took like 10 days to get it back and they were trying to hack people and it was very bad. And that's the kind of things that I think give Web3 a bad name. And whether it's education or anything, I was told once all it takes is one oh shit to ruin 100 attaboys. And, when technology can do so much good for so many people, but then there's one thing that could really put a stain on something and really, really give it a bad name and a bad outlook on a lot of people. But I think what y'all are doing at Open Campus is amazing, trying to educate Web3. And you had mentioned doing work all the way from like kindergarten through like grade school type business that y'all had done. Are y'all in partnership with any government entities, whether state or federal in any countries, or is this all through what type of companies does that work through? Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think we have, when we kind of look at the education space, there's so many different layers, whether it's the end learner, the child, the parent, the teacher, the principal, the corporate sponsor, the HR, the government, etc. We actually work with a lot of governments, but our strategy has always been looking at government partners at the forefront. So we work very closely with the Hong Kong government, Singapore, Dubai, essentially pro crypto, pro crypto ecosystems. I think when it comes to education, that's also a strategy too, because majority of our portfolio companies, they either serve Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. And if you kind of get a good sense of where those markets lay, they're also very strong with crypto and AI and essentially future technology. And I think this is essentially a strategy for all of us to have a think about where are the markets where we can really arbitrage and rapidly move. And so when we kind of think about taking that leap forward, it's really trying to figure out where are the sectors that are less competitive, that have less bureaucracy, less folks sitting on their ivory towers, and that's actually where we're trying to play. I think one final note is at the end of the day, there's always going to be challenges to existing industry, but why education and to a certain extent healthcare have been one of the slowest to move is because of all the bureaucracy and legacy in place. So I do think the problems that we're solving are tough, but we're taking a long-term view on the space as we are with Web3.
Awesome, awesome, Will. Yeah, I think a long-term outlook in Web3 is the best way to do it, right? I mean, that's definitely you have to have a long-term outlook on everything. But even a long-term outlook in crypto isn't that long, right? Like even going back to the beginning of Bitcoin, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long ago. We're in a very young industry here, and that's one of the reasons I love it and have so much respect for people like y'all at Open Campus for really being on the forefront of new technology going forward. Because, like you said, all this legacy, systems, whether it's education or pharmaceutical or medical, like you said, it's really hard to make changes in that. When I look at it, there's a few big companies that have a strong hold on it. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of contracts in it. And if they just don't shake anything up, they'll still be making a lot of money and the big wheel just keeps on rolling and everything. But with that being said, looking ahead the next, let's say, 2 years, 2 to 3 years, which is a very long time in crypto, right? What what do you anticipate the relationship being with memes, artificial intelligence, and education? It's kind of a loaded question, but where do you see all of this playing out? Is some of it a fad? Is some of it going to go away? Or do you think it's all going to grow together?
I think culture as a currency is such a fascinating space to look at. And for me personally, I'm still pretty new to the crypto space. I entered about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, as a, you know, retail normie, and in building with Open Campus and, starting to increase my bags in meme coins, NFTs, and everything in between. It's actually realizing that, the whole culture and branding game, super interesting. And so I look at projects like yourself, like your meme lands, your pudgy penguins of the world, where you're not so much a fad, but you're actually a long term business. You're a long term project. And what's exciting as an education player and running an education business is really thinking about how do I help you guys elevate internally, but also elevate externally too. We also, as an investor, we look at macro trends. So if you look at the past 6 to 12 months, hedge funds have been making big bets into your whiffs, into your popcats of the world. So it speaks volumes around external capital being very interested in this space, not seeing it as a fad or short term pump and dump. But I do think this is actually going to the direction where it can be a challenger asset to invest into. So, for me personally, I'm very interested in cult like communities, and how do those cults actually eventually turn into long term brands. So, I'm very excited about this space, and I'm also very excited about the teams that are involved and how they elevate over time.
I absolutely love what you just said. Culture as a currency. And I think that's very, very interesting and a great outlook on it. I think that's exactly what has been created with meme coins. It started off with Dogecoin, and then we've had this wave of meme coins, and we're way over diluted, right? I think there's like 5,500 new tokens being launched today. 99.99 of them are going to fail and should fail and go to zero. But the ones that are able to build a community and a cult like following, like you said, those are the ones that I think will last a long time. And I think that such as Turbo brings a lot of value to any business, whether it's open campus or Animoca, as we've talked about, like we're both duly partnered with, because if you just make a post right now and mention the Turbo community, man. You're gonna have Turbo Charger, Screaming Toad, King Turbo, Limb Sanity, and Michael. No, you're gonna have all these people just freaking, rating it, spamming it, whatever you want to say. And they post all kinds of organic artwork constantly. That's something I've seen a lot on Turbo's page. All these independent artists making a lot of art, getting it posted there. So it's just culture as a currency. I absolutely love that. I love that saying. I'm going to steal it and I'm going to start saying it on my YouTube videos. But Will, I want to thank you and everyone at Open Campus very much for joining us, letting us know here in the Turbo Toad community what the future of education looks like in Web3 and how a potential partnership with Turbo would potentially look going forward. Um, the floor is yours. Do you have anything that we didn't mention that you want to talk about? Whether it's Open Campus, the EDU token, anything. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, maybe one last wrap up point is, we as a foundation, we are actively looking into the meme coin space, and it's really meeting you guys halfway because the folks in the community are the ones building the brand, building the reputation. I like to think in comparables. So if like you mentioned earlier, you do a post on Turbo, and then you have your folks really rating and thinking about how to creatively make noise and shout to the top of the mountains. And I do think there's so much value behind that. Our role as a foundation, backed by the right partners, is to help elevate each other collectively. So, yeah, for those that are interested in understanding more, hit us up. I'm sure we're going to have more of these type of conversations. We're already doing stuff in the background together. So, excited to see where the shoe drops. And yeah, always happy to talk about this space together.
That's amazing. I look forward to hearing about an announcement with Open Campus and Turbo in the future. But thank you so much, Will, for joining us and everyone at Open Campus, guys. As always, this is Freeman Finance and Crypto, just another community member, just like every single one of y'all, an extension of the best meme coin of all time, the People's Revolution, the People's Token. I love what I've been seeing, all kinds of independent artists making artwork, guys. We're having different people host the AMAs. We had my guy Black Tiger host the last one. We're going to be co-hosting some going forward, and I'm welcome to have anyone else up on it. Like I said, it's a community-driven project. Ever since I got involved with it, the community absolutely opened their arms and wrapped it around me, and that is why I'm here, and that's why I'm going to stay here, guys. Let's hope this is a great cycle, but either way, the community is still here. That's one thing I want to say, guys. When I don't focus on the price too much, but when the price goes down, community is heavy. Price goes up, community is heavy. It doesn't matter. You guys always show up, and that's why I'm so proud to be a part of the Turbo Toad community, guys. So as always, let's keep the faith, stay determined, and don't stop till Turbo reaches the very top, guys. Oh, one last thing. We will have an AMA coming up with a different partner, or not a partner, but educational realm about cyber security, how to prevent hacking, how to prevent everything like that. Since I got hacked, that was my number one priority, trying to find somebody to educate us on how to stay safe in Web3. Love you all.